specialist reporter Karyn Maughan standing by for us. She's just been part of that media briefing. Thank you for joining us at such short notice, Karyn. Just your view, let's just drill down to the facts that we have at our disposal. Going by the information given in this press conference by the minister, how exactly are they planning to pay those 17 million grants at the end of March?
Well, what has become apparent is that they have in sort of terms, friendly terms, come to some agreement with CPS, but they're using the fact that there hasn't been a signed contract to argue that, there is no finalised deal as such, and thus avoid questions which I think are pretty pivotal at this point about potential costs of this deal. There were reports in Bongwane that CPS was demanding as much as an additional 1.3 billion rand a year to continue with the deal. We don't have any sense at this point about whether or not that was part of the resolution reached with CPS in those negotiations. Of course, the department announcing on Friday that a deal has been reached, but the SASA representative at this press conference denying that contract had been finalised at this point. So the real questions about cost, and indeed also those thorny issues of information of social grants beneficiaries being made available to third parties, which raised a lot of ire. We don't have any sense, Marcel, at this point about those kind of arrangements. Everything that was put in that press statement was sort of a quite diluted and sanitized account of this debacle, and failed in many senses to acknowledge the department's responsibility in creating what Treasury has described as a self-created crisis.
Now, Karyn, the minister spent quite a bit of time detailing yet again what she believed, or from what we've deemed, what she believes to not have been a supportive relationship with Treasury. She went into quite a bit of detail about all the letters that she wrote in the lead up to what has now become a full-blown crisis. What can we make about her statements, specifically around her relationship with Treasury?
Well, that answer went on for quite some time. But I mean, all of this is a matter of public record. The fact of the matter is that social development, the SASA deal, cannot be signed with CPS without seeking a deviation from open tender processes from Treasury. Now, Treasury has made it very clear that they cannot violate the Public Finance Management Act or the Constitution by allowing such a deviation unless the Constitutional Court gives its approval to such in the form of a court order. They made that very clear to social development. We know that there is this rhetoric coming from the minister about one of the suggestions of Treasury, which was the utilization of banks to help pay social grants. We know that they went on quite a profound media campaign to show us rural areas in which people didn't have bank accounts, and suggest that this was at the heart of the dispute that they seem to be having with Treasury. But the heart of it is Treasury is saying you can't expect us to break the law unless you get a court order. And I think they'll find a lot of sympathy within the Constitutional Court environment when this matter makes its way to court. The other problem, of course, for the Department of Social Development is that in light of Treasury's advice and Treasury's very firm position on that matter, they did not go to the Constitutional Court and seek some form of order, or even advise the court in October, which is when they received the original illegal advice, that this was a problem and they needed to come up with a solution. They simply sat on their hands, and up until today we still have no idea why, and no sense of the minister taking any real profound form of responsibility for that, even though they've stated in a report filed on Friday that she took responsibility for the fact that SASA in many respects gave the court incorrect information in November 2015 about their state of readiness to take over grants. And in the light of that, the court was under the impression that they would do so, and basically didn't take over that supervisory role in terms of the enforcement of that court order.
Now, Karyn, one last question. This is really a story that's developing at a rate of knots. We heard you ask the question repeatedly for the minister's comment on last night's resignation of the DG of Social Development, Zane Dango. She refused to answer that question, really, merely saying that he was highly respected and she wasn't there to answer those questions. What are you hearing on the ground about the circumstances around his resignation?
No, he's made it very clear that he was unhappy about the fact that this deal, which has apparently not been finalised in a contract form, was essentially illegal. Now remember, the Director General is the accounting officer of the department. So any kind of financial decisions which are made will ultimately fall on his shoulders. The fact that he has resigned in the manner that he has and made the public pronouncements that he has is a surefire indication that there are major questions over the legality of this deal. The Minister has said on record that, the department and government is committed to radical economic transformation, yet they are doing business with a company that misled or gave a false impression about their BEE requirements, and also were found to have deducted illegally from the payments given to pensioners and the poorest of the poor. So now government is continuing a deal with that company. We have no idea at this stage what the terms of that deal are. The department is refusing to comment on Mr. Dangore's reasons for resigning and the way in which he has left. It's also not speaking in any kind of profound way about the absence of the SASSA CEO, who has apparently placed himself on sick leave, but was reportedly facing suspension over negotiations with the post office. And it is simply untenable as a journalist to be in a circumstance where if you ask those kinds of questions, you are referred to as having some kind of motive or come to a press conference. So really an opportunity for the Minister to come and play open cards with our South African public, and one that was not only missed, one opportunity that was not only missed, but also which resulted in a very, very hostile kind of interaction with the media, the likes of which I've never really experienced before.
Well, we're going to have to leave it there for now. Our specialist reporter, Karyn Maughan, reporting to us live from Pretoria after giving us the latest on what can only fairly be said was a very hostile press conference with the Minister of Social Development, Patabile Dlamini. We'll bring you more on that story over the coming hours.